Hi guys, Chris Dorry here. Today I'll talk about the most unstoppable forward 50 force that I've seen come through the junior ranks. That's Jamarra Ugle-Hagan, Western Bulldogs Next Generation Academy, and potential pick one.
So with key forwards, I've got three key criteria. So I've got production, rate of improvement, and points of difference. So when I look at key forwards, it's not about who you are today, it's about who you'll be 4 years from now. That's really what you're trying to draft for. And for me, these three criteria have been those elements with the strongest correlation with how good a key forward actually will be. So you look at production, well, Jamarra's production was phenomenal last year, and I'll go into that a bit later. But given there were no games this year, well, I can't justify a full 1 out of 1. So had he played this year, my speculation is he could have kicked 6 goals a game, could have taken 10 grabs a game, and probably 2 or 3 of those, maybe even 4 of those would be contested. So I think his production would have been phenomenal, particularly on a very strong Oakley team. And during the under-18 championships, I also feel he would have excelled. So, but again, no games this year, no evidence. All we have to go off is last year. Usually with each of these 3 categories, I'd only rate players either a 0, 0.5 or 1. But I'm playing sort of the in-between game here, where usually I wouldn't give a 0.75, but this year is a bit of an exceptional year, where look, there isn't the evidence and we're only speculating, and he would get somewhere between a 0.5 or a 1, so I've played it safe and gone the 0.75. So, and then rate of improvement. So I've done a similar thing here, where if we were to assess his very first games versus the series of games where he was averaging 4 a game, well, distinct difference, he improved drastically. And then you've also got during the preseason, well, his testing was really phenomenal. So really it looked like he was improving and on track to really improve a lot this year. But again, without any games, well, you'd be thinking it's either a 0.5 or a 1. And because there's no guarantees, because we haven't seen any of that from him this year, well, I've cut the difference and I've gone 0.75. So you could justify for both of these categories a 1 out of 1, but again, no games, so I just don't feel I can do that. But points of difference, well, for me, this is the clear one, where points of difference is a clear 1 out of 1, where just with that leap alone, where the way he leaps, attacks the ball, you can't stop him. If he's airborne, he's either going to take the mark or he's just going to be clumsy and drop it on his own accord. There's no way of stopping him if he gets airborne. And it's the same story. If you isolate him inside 50 on his own, well, and you clear the 50, well, there's no one better I've seen, where between his leap, how he creates separation on the lead, his ground level craft, he's got that complete game where it's just, he'll give any defender headaches on a level I've really never seen other than maybe Buddy from a key forward. So, look, he's incredible and clear 1 out of 1 there. So, how is projecting? I'm looking at him as elite. So, he'll play, the way he's looking, he'll be a 250, 300 gamer type. If he hits 300 games, look, he could average 3 goals a game. He could be the next player to reach 900 goals if things go right. So he has the scope to be an all-time great, but I'm playing it safe and saying, well, look, Logan McDonald was incredible this year, and what Jamarra did last year wasn't as amazing as what Logan did this year, so I'm only giving the credit of elite, where I'm playing it safe, but who would I pick? Pick one if I had the pick? Well, I lean slightly towards Jamarra, but because there's not that distinct separation, I'm not going the all-time great card. But if I was to say there was a player who could average 4 goals a game in a season, the only player I'm seeing, whether it's someone currently existing on an AFL list or someone coming through the junior ranks, Jamarra is the solitary player that I see as having that upside. So, so that would mean if he plays 20 games, he'd kick 80 goals. I think at the peak of his powers, he's the only guy that has that upside and that real capability. So that's something to watch for, and So what needs highlighting with Jamarra is a particular 5-game stretch towards the end of the year. So this doesn't include his grand final performances, but every game leading up to and including his other finals. So during that stretch of 5 games in the NAB League where he played for Oakley, he had Raul, Anderson, he had Will Phillips, who's, in my opinion, the best midfielder in this draft. You've got Finlay McRae, brother of Jack McRae. So the point is, you've got really an all-time great under 18 team giving him delivery. But what did he do with it? Well, he took full advantage, and he was that number one option inside 50. So he averaged 4 goals, 6.2 marks, 2 contested marks. So phenomenal effort. And had he played this year in his draft year, well, that's why I was talking about before. He would have got phenomenal numbers, and I would have said probably he would have gone for something like he would have gone for probably 6 goals, 10 marks, probably 3 to 4 contested marks reasonably. So that's roughly what you'd get with Jamarra. So obviously elite numbers had he played, but all we've got really is that 2019 form to go off of. So if we're to look at Jamarra, well, how good was he actually as an underager? So looking at his performances last year, so 9 games, 24 goals, so great returns. It's about 2.5 roughly goals per game, so good return. If you're to look at the start of the season, well, no goals, 1 goal, so bit of a slow start, but then obviously quarter light, as per what I've already spoken about. And then his grand final performance against Eastern, look, it wasn't nearly as strong as those weeks prior, but in saying that, look, he still had 3 behinds, so look, he still hit the scoreboard, just obviously he'd like goals, and then he had his 8 marks, 2 of which contested, so it's not like he was a no-show. So, but yeah, obviously very strong performances. And then if you were to look at rate of improvement, well, 2018, 3 games, no goals, so big improver last year. And had this year gone ahead, well, I think he would have absolutely come on in leaps and bounds. So, and my thinking is, look, yeah, maybe it's 5 goals a game. It's hard to know, but could be 5 goals, could be 6 goals, could be probably 10 marks a game. If he's getting 8 in the grand final in what was an off game and 2 contested marks, well, I think he could probably be good for 10 marks, 3 to 4 of which contested, seeing some of his other contested numbers averaging about 2 a game. So yeah, obviously fantastic. And then if we're to compare it against some of the other top picks from years past, so John Patton, well, he was a pick 1 in 2011. So what did he do? So as an underager, averaged 2 goals a game, so Jamarra one-upped in there. Although if you were to look at times in best, well, Patton probably had more of an impact just with how strong of a mark he was. And then in his draft year, well, almost 3 goals a game. So obviously he was terrific, but if you were to compare, say, a John Patton to a Jamarra, well, you have to remember with Patton, well, even when he was drafted, he was about 198 and over 100 kilos, so just if you were to compare how physically developed they are, well, Patton was that sort of size at 17 and then, or 16 or 17, and then you look at Jamarra, well, in the preseason this year, well, he was only 84 kilos, so he's still incredibly physically developing and really progressing at a rate of knots. So if you were to think about that, well, I see a lot more upside despite pretty comparable, if not in some respects better performance if you're looking at what he did really close to goal. And then you look at a Tom Boyd, again, pick 1, so pick 1 2013. So what did he do as an underager? So averaged, what would that be, about 3 goals a game, just a smidge under. So again, pretty comparable to what Jamarra did in terms of performance, probably more marks if you'd look at it. Let's see if we can get some numbers up. Yeah, so strong marking numbers, so probably did more comparatively, but again, if you were to look at a Boyd, well, he was someone where he was already 199 roughly in his draft year, and really even as a 16-year-old, he was sort of that 198 centimetre, sort of really over 100 kilo sort of physical specimen at that age. So if you were to look at how physically developed he is, well, again, there's a reason he probably didn't have that same ceiling compared to a Jamarra who really has some more physical developing to go. So they're things to be aware of when considering scope to develop and what sort of upside they've got. Joe Danaher, so we only have his draft year stats, but goals per game pretty similar to Jamarra, marks per game higher. But yeah, Joe Danaher, he was incredible as a junior. Then you look at Max King, so what he did in his underage year, well, less than 2 goals a game. He did play some ruck minutes here and there. So does it have any hitouts? Yeah, so we have some hitouts. So he played a few ruck minutes here and there, but yeah, mostly key forward. But yeah, probably not as sensational of a underage year. But then obviously his draft year, well, only the one game, but he kicked his 8 goals, took 11 marks, of which 8 were contested. So obviously fantastic in that one game. And had he played the year as a genuine full forward, well, he may have averaged 4 goals a game. So yeah, and obviously King's someone where he looks fantastic. And he's someone where, although he was always tall, that over 2 meter guy, well, he wasn't sort of, and it's the same with Joe Danaher. He didn't have that physical size where he wasn't physically more advanced than everyone. So you'd still sort of have that upside in King. And if we're to look at the who would I start a team with video, well, we had a lot of people saying, oh, we'd start a team with Max King. So if we were to compare Jamarra, well, Jamarra's numbers, certainly as an underage, are very favourable to Max King's. So that's something to be aware of. Then you've got Shaki. Well, what was he doing? So as an underager, less than 2 goals a game. Draft year, almost 3.5 goals a game, so pretty good numbers. But yeah, even sort of comparing that, well, I don't look at Shaki favourably. He's someone where he probably went a bit too early in his draft year, even from my opinion at the time. Then you've got Paddy McCartan, and of course the health issues, that's been hard for him, plus you've had all the concussions following that, so he's had a awful run, and it's not necessarily his fault that that's been the case. But well, what was he doing? So we've only really got his draft year numbers, but 4 goals a game, so terrific. But unfortunately no underage data to compare. And then you've got Ben King. So what have we got here? So underage, 9 games, no goals. So back then he was playing as a key defender because he had Max up forward and Sandringham had other options up forward. And then 2018, well, with Max getting hurt, well, Ben had to shift forward and become that, I guess, primary option. But as a junior, Ben wasn't really that dominant, I guess, close to goal target. He'd play usually a bit higher up the ground compared to Max, and he'd often even play in defence. So it's really impressive that Ben has become as good as he's become with Gold Coast. And really that first year, I didn't really see that coming. So yeah, he's looking really good as well. But again, looking at Jamarra's underage numbers, well, they compare with the best of them. Plus, you've still got the upside on top of all that. So yeah, certainly of those recent top, I guess, key forwards from Victoria, well, Jamarra is looking like the cream of the crop, in my opinion. So some might argue Max King might be the guy, but he wasn't as advanced then. Maybe on his draft year, had he not got hurt, maybe. But yeah, with Jamarra, had the season gone ahead, well, even then, I think in that scenario, well, I think we're looking at, I guess, the better output. And again, he's playing for a better Oakley team. Oakley are just absolutely phenomenal with the talent they've got in their junior program at the moment. So yeah, they're the things to, I guess, keep in mind in the, I guess, greater context of, well, you've got all these number 1 picks in Patton, you've got Boyd, we had McCartan, and then we've got other, I guess, top early picks. Shaki was a pick too. So, and then Danaher, well, he was a father's son. But so with Jamarra, well, what does his game actually look like out on the field? Well, he's someone where if you let him run and jump at the ball, well, he's going to run and jump at it, and he's going to elevate over everyone, and more likely than not, he's probably going to take a grab. So the scouting report from day one is going to say you can't let him get a jump at the ball or you're in trouble. So and he's someone where, look, if you let him isolate one-on-one deep inside 50, well, it's game over for the rival defender, because he'll take it in the air, he'll create separation on the lead. If he brings it to ground, well, his ground level craft is too good. So yeah, you're just in trouble no matter how it's played out.
So what everyone wants to know, of course, is, well, who does he play like? So with Jamarra, well, there's no exact comparison for him, but how I've termed him from really early to mid last year was really buddy with hops. That's the most accurate way of putting it, where there's no one nearly in his class that has that sort of same ability and that same combination of talent. But in terms of career trajectory, you could be looking at something potentially like Buddy if things go right. So that's something to be aware of. But his biggest strength, well, obviously it's his verticality, where he's in the air. Even if you try and knock him around, well, he's got the body control to complete the mark regardless of what you try and do to him once he launches. So, but in terms of, well, what's Buddy like? Why do I make that comparison? Well, he's got that same speed, agility. He's actually got good endurance as well, if you look at his testing. But yeah, he's also someone where he's really good at ground level, and he's got that same sort of mind-to-body connection. He just moves really well, really fluidly. So just for someone of key position height, well, he's got those same sort of instincts to him. So he's got the scope to be absolutely special. But in saying that, there are some areas that will need to improve for him to reach his potential. So the big thing with, I guess, how vertical of an athlete he is, well, he's definitely going to need to become a more consistent mark, where he needs to, even some uncontested marks, well, he drops some of those. So it's really important where he just needs to develop that to really become that monster. And a bit like Buddy, well, marking isn't necessarily his strength as well, being more that ground level guy. But with Jamarra, it really needs to be, because that's going to be his bread and butter in that way, where that's how he's going to become unstoppable if he ever does take that step. But other things, well, it's mainly his kicking that lets him down. So he's probably lacks some penetration. So there's some times where he struggles to make it more than 40 meters. So he really needs to be able to clear 50 and have that sort of penetration. So he probably needs to build up the strength with his kicking quite a bit more. But then also you've got reliability from set shots. So that's something where he lets himself down quite a number of times from positions he just shouldn't. So he really does need to clean that up as well. But if he gets the marking together, if he cleans up his kicking and he really fulfills his potential, well, he could be an all-time monster. But yeah, he does look like that elite talent. And really, in terms of that inside 50 target, well, he can be the best in the competition. So that's what you're really looking at. So if you add Jamarra with Aaron Norton, well, that's the best combination in the competition once they're both developed and they've had their sort of, once Jamarra's had his 4 years in the competition, I think that combination will absolutely take over the competition.
So the big question, well, will Jamarra be as good as Buddy, better than Buddy? Well, for me, no, he won't be as good, but he could be nearly as good. So I think he'll be probably the next best thing and the best key forward since Buddy. That's my prediction in terms of as that sort of inside 50 target. That's what I'm seeing him as. So obviously in terms of verticality, what he does in the air, well, it's on an entirely another level from Buddy. It's just not close. It's not a fair comparison because he doesn't have that sort of game. But in terms of other areas of the game, well, looking at whether it's ground level craft, mind to body connection, well, although Jamarra has that, it's not quite on that same level necessarily. And then I'm also really looking at, well, does he have that same kicking penetration? Well, Prime Buddy could launch at 65 meters. So yeah, Jamarra really needs to improve that kicking. And although young Buddy really struggled in terms of his reliability of kicking, well, Jamarra's might even need a little more work as well in comparison. So, and look, what we're going off is his underage years. So yeah, look, hopefully he's been working on that and he comes in and it looks a lot better and he can clear that 50, he can clear at 55. But yeah, will he be as good as Buddy? For me, probably not, but he could come close. He could come very close if everything really works out for him. And if he has that durability, if he becomes that 300 gamer or near, well, yeah, he could go down really as a special key forward and possibly even that generational key forward as that inside 50 target where if you ask me, well, who would be the inside 50 key forward that I'd want? Well, I'm taking Jamarra. So sorry, Max King, but yeah, I'm going Jamarra. Thanks for watching till the end, and make sure you like, subscribe and hit the notification bell for future updates. And let me know in the comment section below, will Jamarra be as good as Buddy? Will he be better than Max King? Will he be the best key forward in the game? And will Jamarra and Aaron Norton be the best key forward combination? They're the questions I'm asking myself, so let me know in the comments section below your thoughts. Thanks guys, see you in the next video.